Feel empty? Like something is missing? Fantasia helps the disenchanted become enchanted by inspiring them to become conscious, holistic creators who dance with life. Each week we explore new ideas that expand consciousness, increase love, and enhance magical awareness. Now, here's your host, Laura Giles.
You know, the fear of death is only second to the fear of public speaking. Yeah, some people would rather die than speak in public. That's crazy, right? If this is you, let's talk because you're going to have a hard time being enchanting when you're full of fear of something that happens to everyone. Hi, welcome to Fantasia. I'm your host, Laura Giles, and I'm here to help you transition from disenchanted to enchanted so that you can make all your magic inside visible to the world. That's what we're all here to do, right? I think you can see that being afraid of dying is probably the biggest obstacle to being creative, magical, and divine because fear makes us play small. Remember the story of Chicken Little? Chicken Little's walking through the forest one day when an acorn falls on her head. She's convinced that the sky is falling and she has to run and tell the king, so presumably he can do something to save them all. On her way to the king, one by one, she meets her barnyard friends and instills fear in them, telling them all that the sky is going to fall. And as they get closer to the king, the crowd of panicked animals grows until they meet Foxy Loxy, who is obviously a fox. The fox says he will take them to the king and leads them to his lair, where they're never seen again. Fables are moral tales, and this short story is full of morals. The first is to check your facts. Chicken Little got herself in an uproar because of an acorn. She catastrophized something minor, and people with black and white thinking often do this. They can take something small and turn it into a giant thing that just keeps them up all night. That's the nature of fear. It's a plague that robs you of your sleep, peace, happiness, and life. So before you get upset, make sure that the situation is panic-worthy. The second moral of the story is not to promote fear in other people without good cause. And this happens every day on social media. Someone is upset about something and wants to feel justified in their fear, so they find everything they can to support it and make other people upset too. It might be illegal immigrants stealing cats, the earth is shifting on its axis, or the world is not real, it's a simulation. I think there's a huge difference between discussing a topic to gain understanding and stoking fears to sell products, get likes or followers, or just to create drama. In my private group, we discuss topics. There's a lot of strange things happening in the world, and reality isn't what we thought it was. I think it's worthwhile to have a rational conversation to feel things out. That's a completely different thing from making people afraid that they're going to lose their lives, livelihood, security, children, or something that's meaningful to them. And that's what some of these social media posts do. The network news as well. It's bad news all the time. While that gets ratings, it's not good for the heart. It doesn't feel good or inspire. I grew up in an era of free-range parenting. All kids were outside all day long and didn't come in until the streetlights came on. We had the freedom to explore, yell, scream, run, and spread our wings. Lots of people glorify those days, but they really were sunshine and roses. Today, there's a high level of fear, so much that kids can't even go outside in their own yard unsupervised. And I'm not saying the dangers aren't real, but they are real because of the energy that we give to them. We can still look out for each other, know our neighbors, and walk around with a smile. Regardless of all else, that's a choice. And words have power. This is why we call it spelling. Everything is energy. Everything vibrates. And the energy of our words create our individual and collective reality. When we speak lovely things, we get lovely results. When we speak panicky, fearful things, we get scary results. Our words have frequency, and that is the foundation of thoughts, beliefs, and tangible things. We can create magic, or we can create mayhem. So you can see how fear can influence reality. Love and peace also create reality. So speak of beautiful, uplifting, heartwarming things. See through the lens of growth, support, and connection, because that's what death is. It's a sign of growth. It's a sign that you're leveling up. I know that when we're young, we're told magic isn't real, but that's only because we don't understand it. I think it's also because those that do don't want everyone else to have the power to use it, so they laugh at us. Magic is simply the art of directing and controlling energy using natural forces to produce a desired effect. And sounds, thoughts, and words are natural forces. So, if you're afraid, talk about your fears in a rational way to find understanding, not to inflame other people. It's okay to be afraid, and if we can diffuse the fear by talking about it, it's a lot healthier than inflaming it. Now, another moral from this story is that the animals who are listening to Chicken Little did not do their due diligence. In other words, don't believe everything you hear. Now we're finding out that all kinds of things that we were taught just aren't true. Did you know that evolution isn't true? Yeah, human artifacts and remains were found in a California cave that were 40 million years old, and they proved that Homo sapiens sapien did not evolve from apes. Each type of primate is its own species, and they did not evolve into each other. Did you know that? Yeah. Some things that, quote unquote, everybody knows aren't necessarily true. So it's wise to not accept what you hear, even if you think the person telling you is an authority. There are even people today who are questioning whether the world is round. Some people don't believe the germ theory for disease. They think it's more about terrain and opportunity than the presence of bacteria and viruses. Question everything. It's your life. Think for yourself. Research for yourself. Discover what you believe before you go running off on someone else's crusade. Finally, there's one more moral of the story of Chicken Little, and that is that there's always someone who's willing to take advantage of a crisis. In this case, it's Foxy Loxy. Sometimes characters like Foxy Loxy creates the chaos to make others easier to prey upon. In this story, Foxy Loxy was an opportunist. Either way, all the birds in this story made themselves vulnerable by being so overcome with fear and wanting someone to save them that they gave up all their power. I guess that would make one more moral of this fable. Nobody's coming to save you. The birds are running to the king like he's got all this power and all the answers. You've got to save yourself. Now, am I saying if my building is burning, I shouldn't call a fireman? No. I'm saying that it's up to me to call 911, to get myself to safety if I can, or to go with a firefighter when they come. I just can't wait for someone to swoop in and I do nothing. My choices are my responsibility, always. I can run into the fox den because I am afraid of something as silly as the sky falling, or I can be aware and wise. So being full of fear, especially the fear of death, will make me play small and probably do really unwise things because of my fear of dying. Chicken Little was completely disenchanted. Whenever you're imagining things like the sky is falling because you're hit by an acorn, you're not grounded or rational. It's time to get a grip, and that's not a way to live. I heard a story by a Vietnam veteran who said that the first time he was in a firefight, he ran underneath a Jeep, peed on himself, and cried like a baby. He was really embarrassed by that, but his nervous system was taken over. He couldn't help it. And yet he never wanted to do that again. So he decided that he was already dead. That helped him to get through all the next battles. Then, when he was close enough to get out and he could count the days, well, he knew that most men got killed in the last 20 days before they were discharged, and he knew why. Because they began to get really careful. They started fearing death. They were so close to being done that they could taste it and they didn't want to mess anything up, and that's what cost them their lives. The Tao says this about that. I've heard that the one who knows how to live can wander through the land without encountering the rhinoceros or the tiger. He passes the battlefield without being struck by weapons. In him, the rhinoceros finds no opening for its horn. The tiger finds no opening for its claws. The soldier finds no opening for their blades. Why is that so? Death has no place in him. This is what I mean by playing small. Nobody's here to play small. We're just here to play. Death is going to get us all, and when we die before we're dead, we're playing small. We didn't fully live. So is it worth it? It's up to each of us to decide. I'm saying this to you, but I've also done this. When I was a little kid, I rode around on a skateboard and I never thought about falling. Although I must have fallen many times before, I learned how to ride smoothly. I just pushed off and I rode. If I was learning a new trick, I tried until it became easy. Well, one day, years later, I was in a store and remembered that I rode skateboards, and so I hopped on. Oh my God. I went down so fast. It didn't occur to me that I didn't have the same agility or balance or courage. And I didn't get back on it because of fear. I didn't want to fall again. And this is how we get stiff and slow in our old age. We stop trying and daring and believing. The Tao Te Ching says it more eloquently. It says, people are born soft and weak. They die hard and stiff. That's all you need to know about human nature. We become stiff out of being careful and scared.
Love the vibe? Join the tribe. It's free, and the link is in the show notes. See you there.
So how do we get over it? Well, first by talking about it like this, seeing it for what it is. Death is just the unknown. While it's kind of scary, we have actually all encountered some of the unknown and come out the other side just fine, many, many times. Think about rites of passage. When we leave home and start going to kindergarten, that's the first rite of passage for many of us. We leave the comfort of our home and familiar routine to be surrounded by lots of strange kids and adults. We have to trust a new person to guide us and keep us safe. Our mother isn't there to lean on. Yeah, kindergarten is scary for a lot of people, but once you're 5 and it's September, you got to do what you got to do, and there's no going back to being a little kid. You're in the big time now. You've got responsibilities to do homework, pay attention, and be on time. It's a whole new world. That door has closed behind you, and you can never go back to sleeping in and doing whatever you want. Those days are over. Another rite of passage is graduating from high school. You're not in student mode anymore. You're in independent adult move. It's time to make your own decisions, make your own money, and pay your own way. Whether you go to college or not, it's up to you to choose what to eat, what to spend, whether to get up, and how much effort you put into anything. Win, lose, or draw, it's all on you. When I was a freshman in college, I saw a whole lot of people in the freshman dorm who were not ready for that. They were very reckless. Many flunked out of their first semester and never returned. They didn't get initiated into adulthood. Some caught on a little later, and some never caught up. I'm sure you knew people like that too. The process of a rite of passage is separation, liminality, then integration. Separation is where the person is removed from what they previously knew. And the life process, separation, is when you're being taken from being inside the womb and then brought into the apparent world. You're separated from what you previously knew. This welcoming to this new stage is marked by a baptism, naming ceremony, baby shower, something like that. The liminal space is a space of in between, so it's not this or that. Dawn and dusk are liminal times because they are between day and night. A doorway is a liminal space because it's the space between two rooms. The water's edge is a liminal space between land and water. For the human lifespan, the liminal time is the time of adolescence, so you're between adulthood and childhood. Leaving adulthood is marked by rites of passage such as the girl's first menstruation, getting a driver's license, bar mitzvah, quinceañera, or high school graduation. Integration is when you and the community know that you have completed this process and you have been initiated. That's really the whole reason behind rites of passage and initiation. It's to give you a different identity and status. It helps you and your people know who you are and where you belong. This is why it's such a huge problem in our culture. We don't really have meaningful rites of passage. Now, well, that's a different topic, so I'll just say that all of these steps are deaths. Once you're out of the womb, you can't go back. If you're a girl and once you start menstruating, you can't go back. Once you're married, there's no going back. Those are liminal points that divide who you were and where you were from who you are and where you are now. That's death. Death is a doorway that divides one thing from another unequivocally. Now that you see death in that way, does it make it easier to let go? I hope so. You've done this many, many times before and will again before the big death. If you practice it and do it mindfully, it gets easier. You start to feel less afraid and maybe even a little excited. Let's look at this another way. Let's look at it through the lens of the wheel of life. There are many elements that make up the wheel of life, but to keep it simple, let's talk about the seasons of the year. So spring is where we say life begins in the West. We see shoots come up out of the ground and buds on the trees, baby animals are born, and life is renewing itself. Things continue to grow and mature in summer. It ripens, peaks, and then begins to decline in fall. Then we have the leaves turning colors and falling, and this is a time of death, dying, and decay. Then winter follows, and there is a moment of laying fallow, then conception and gestation. Life has begun, but it's underground, somewhere in the dark where it can't be seen. Then in the spring, life becomes visible and the cycle repeats. Okay, so where exactly is death? It's in that liminal space between fall and winter. Life is a circle. There's no beginning or end. You can make a case for birth and death to be in different places, but I put the doorway of death at the winter solstice. And I say doorway because death is a moment. It's a bridge. You leap across it, and then you're on the other side. Now, the process of dying may last a while, but the act of dying is but a moment. One moment you're a girl, and the next you're a woman. One moment you're single, and then you're married. It's that fast. Then you think of every time that you have closed the door on something and opened a new one. You went through the process of dying, and each time you ended up okay. Remember that boyfriend that you thought you couldn't live without? When's the last time you thought of him? He's probably a faded memory now, but at the time he was everything, right? Your life went on. Remember that thing that you really wanted for Christmas? Whether you got it or didn't, the person who wanted that thing is long gone, I bet. For me, it was the game of life. I think I must have seen it advertised on TV and I had to have it. And I actually did get it, and it wasn't all that fun. Nobody would play with it with me, and it got boring really quickly. And the girl who had to have that is definitely long gone. The point is that parts of us are always dying and making space for new versions of ourselves that are blossoming into being. It wouldn't be great if we stayed the same person our whole lives. What would be the point of living decades if every day and every year were the same? And yet sometimes we resist change and create exactly that. I work with people using metaphors, and metaphors tell the truth. They show us what we either don't want to see or just don't see. I can't tell you how many times I have worked with someone who's in a situation where they're going down the road, the GPS says turn here. They don't turn. It keeps rerouting and rerouting, and then it gets to a point where there's no going back because they have just gone too far down the road. There are no options left. There's nothing to do but die. For example, let's say that I live in a house and my taxes are due. I have enough money to pay taxes or to fix the roof, so I pay the taxes. Then before I can fix the roof, my car breaks down. I could either fix my car or fix the roof, which needed fixing a long time ago, or I could fix the leaking faucet. I fix my car because that's the most pressing thing. And so it goes month after month, with me never getting caught up on my home repairs because there's always another expense. Well, after a while, my house is going to be falling down around me, right? There comes a point of no return. This is what I mean about dying. We call this type of house a money pit. The cash needed to restore the house to a decent state is more than the house is worth. So all you can do is cut your losses and walk away. This is why you want to die when it's time. When the doorway is open to die and you don't, you can go around the merry-go-round one more time, maybe 2 or even 3 times, but each time you go back over the same ground that you did the last time. It stops being fun. It can even get boring and depressing. You can keep doing that as long as you want to, but I'm talking about this so that your choices become visible. It's like the domestic violence relationship. The stereotypical battered woman wants to keep believing that this time is going to be the last time. So they go around the wheel again, covering the same old ground, but the story never changes. The doorway arrives, and when it's time to die, you're like, is she going to get out this time? And even if she does, will she pick up with the same guy in a different body? Or will she actually let that part of her die and begin again? Starting over is hard. It's supposed to be. I live on a farm, and I've seen lots of baby animals born in the winter when it's cold and there's snow on the ground. That seems like a really hostile thing for God to do, but spring is also when nature renews itself and food is available again. So it actually makes sense By the time the babies are bigger, the plants and animals that it feeds upon are also bigger, so there's more for the adult creature to eat. But that's the point, yes. It's hard. It's hard to prepare you for the challenges ahead, but you can do this. Most creatures survive this hard start, and you can too. So just because something is hard isn't a reason to not do it. I know that most of my favorite memories are of things that were hard because when I'm on the other side of them, I feel accomplished and appreciate the struggle that it took to get to that other side. Or even if it was something fun, I appreciate the courage it took to have that fun. If I were doing life right, we're dying all the time. It's a part of life. When we do the little deaths consciously, the big one doesn't feel that scary. If we participate in physical death, meaning we nurse someone, are present near the end of someone's life, we go to the funeral, we honor the dead, clean gravestones, or even have an ancestor altar, we're near the dead all the time. So it becomes as normal as breathing. To me, that makes life more precious because we're always aware that it can end at any moment, not in a fearful way of knowing, but in a respectful way. Ultimately, being disenchanted is about becoming disillusioned and then giving up on life or giving up on your dreams. It's getting knocked down and not getting back up. Think of death like a chasm. It's the end of the road, but you don't just stop, you just jump, land on the other side, and keep going. Even when your body stops working, you're not done. You jump, land on the other side, and keep on going in a different way. There's nothing to fear. It's all part of the natural cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. I know some people think that talking about death is morbid. I think talking about it makes it less foreign and scary. So in the coming weeks, we're going to be talking with a death doula about how having a companion can help you prepare for death or just deal with it and all the things that we need to do to get ready to leave this life. I actually think that if we lived each day as if we're aware that we're going to be leaving someday, maybe sooner than we think, all our lives would be simpler and more streamlined. But we all think that we're going to live forever. Anyway, I hope that conversation becomes easier and eases some of the stress around dying. I'm also going to be talking about home funerals and rites of passage for the dying. I think that being as involved as you want to be in your loved one's final send-off is personal, intimate, and helps so much with the grief and acceptance. It also helps the loved one transition well. My goal is that by the end of fall, any fear of death is gone so that you can let go of what needs to be let go of and start winter on the other side of that chasm with your feet firmly on the ground, ready to rest and conceive of a new beginning. I want to see you enchanted, full of dreams, life, and enthusiasm for what is in you that wants to be born. We're all here to do something magical and wonderful. Letting fear getting in the way of that is accepting less from life than what's available. Don't limit yourself. Take a chance and be you. Fear is a really good thing. It keeps us alive. It tells us when something's wrong or when to watch out, but when it's misplaced, it can be debilitating. Death isn't something to be feared. It's something to be respected, understood, and engaged with. When we're on equal footing with death, when it approaches, we take our running leap, jump across that chasm, and trust that we'll land our feet on the other side, no matter where it takes us. If it helps, think of all the times you've done it in the past, or think of all the women who have done it before you, or all the teenagers, or humans, or whoever has stood where you are standing now. Chances are you're not the first to be here, nor will you be the last. That probably means that everything is going to be all right no matter what. So keep going in the direction of your dreams. To look out that window. It's fall. All the trees are losing their leaves, but not a one of them is worried. Be like a tree. You're a creature of nature too, and nature's a teacher. And don't forget that you're a magical creature. You have stuff within you that can pull you through things you aren't aware that you're capable of. Don't think about it. Just do the hard thing. You're already dead. Me too. Doesn't matter. Go for it. Be that shining, enchanting being. Dare. Jump. And I'll see you on the other side. If you haven't subscribed yet or joined the free group, do that. We talk about scary things. We talk about wonderful things. We grow in magic and support each other. Who doesn't need that? All it takes is a small group of dedicated, balanced, playful people to change the world for the good of all. Thanks for being here, guys. See you next week.
Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Spotify so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, why not show your love with a review? Thanks. See you next week.